this guy right here, when I initially assessed it, I graded it as maybe being toy grade plus, so maybe not quite fully hobby grade. But once I got it on the road, or I should say on the dirt course, and started thrashing it around, it was very stable, fun drive, had a lot of power, and an easy to drive car. And if you're going in places that have any kind of high terrain, like tall grass or that kind of thing, this thing just plowed right through it. So this was a pleasure to drive. A very pleasant surprise.
I got something to say.
Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Our House 21 and time for another episode of RC Physics. So for those of you not familiar with the channel, RC Physics is a YouTube channel all about our favorite RC hobby and all sorts of interesting cool stuff to keep you busy, you know, when you get the need for speed. All right guys, so this time around I'm doing an unboxing for a product I got from Amazon.com. Now, actually the company who makes this reached out to me and said, hey, are you interested in testing our RC? And I'm not going to turn down an opportunity to test a free car. So this guy right here, this is interesting. So I'll splice in a picture of what the listing says on Amazon. It's not a name I ever heard of, to be honest with you, but the listing looked kind of interesting, so I figured I'll go ahead and give it a shot. So first impressions, just looking at the packaging, you know, so Chase Night Speed. The packaging itself looks pretty decent, honestly. You've got good graphics. This is calling the brand name 10 Speed, but just looking at what's on the box, it's claiming that this is a 10th scale, ready to run, PET, Environmental Protection Vehicle Shell. So I'm guessing they're saying that this is the material. PET is basically the same material that you make soda bottles out of. Independent suspension, 4-wheel drive, 2.4 gigahertz, differential mechanisms. Okay, so it has real diffs. It's claiming a top speed of 46 kilometers an hour, which is a pretty decent speed. So IPX4 waterproof, IPX4 I believe is basically splash proof. So you're not going to want to submerge this thing, but it should be able to take driving through some puddles. Let's see if there's anything else interesting going here. Okay, so it looks like, oh, that's a pretty interesting looking chassis here. See, that's a very interesting looking chassis. Let's take a look at that. And dual motor drive. Okay, so this actually has 2 brush motors inside of it. All right, interesting. Professional high-speed vehicle. Okay, so, and it looks like it comes in 2 different colors, a blue and a red. So let's see which one I have. And it's claiming for ages 14 and above. So, wait, all in all, oh, and look at this size package right here. So metal armor. So it looks like it's got skid plates on the bottom of it. 6 shock absorbers. Okay, interesting. And the radio looks like your standard flare where you've got speed controls and 2.4 gigahertz. All right, so enough of that. Let's go ahead and open this guy up and see what's in here. Oh, something just flew out at me. Okay, so here we go. ZEALINNO warranty. So the brand name as so far is ZEALINNO, but this is kind of cool. It's got a little QR code, so this will take you to the website, so you can check that out. It's claiming a lifetime warranty. That's interesting. Any parts are damaged or lost, contact us. So it looks like if you break something, they have free replacement parts. That's kind of cool. 3-year return and exchange warranty. It looks like no questions asked. Okay, all right, that is interesting. So, I mean, the fact that they would offer a lifetime warranty like this, that speaks highly of the product. So let's see if the quality actually stands up. Okay, so, so got the manual. All right, you know, I'm a sucker for good manuals. Let's take a look. Professional. Okay, so it looks like there's some typos. So again, with some of these manuals, sometimes they're not written by people who have English as their first language. So sometimes the language side of these are kind of rough, and I'll just be honest. So this is my first impression, so I'm not going to have a chance to proofread this. But overall, the big thing that you want to get from these manuals is that does it give you the information you need in order to get the vehicle up and running. So it looks like it's got basic information on how to install the batteries, information about charging the battery pack, how to install the battery. Okay, brief description. about the actual operation of the radio, steering controls, trims, so all the basic things like that. All right, and it actually has dual rates. That's not bad. That's not really expected from a vehicle in this class. So dual rate basically allows you to adjust the sensitivity of the steering. So let's say you want to make the steering more aggressive or make it a little bit lighter depending upon your driving style. That gives you the opportunity. So it's kind of cool that this vehicle will let you do that. All right, and very basic controls. Oh, that's interesting. It has a full speed and a half speed mode. That's useful. Depending on how fast the vehicle is, you know, it's going to be a question of whether the vehicle really needs that. Having a capability like that is actually pretty useful, because let's say you as an adult are driving and you want to hand it over to a kid who may not necessarily be up to running at full speed operation. You can drop it down to half speed and let them have some fun too. All right, and again, this is just kind of reinforcing. It's splash proof, so this looks like it's saying get it up to the wheels but don't get the body wet. All right, okay, and then we fall into like legal disclaimers. Oh, and cool, this is the parts list. So this is identifying all of the parts. Okay, the picture implies that it has a metal gear differential. That would be kind of cool. Again, more parts, and there should be an exploded view. Yes, so we have an exploded view to show you how everything comes together. So it looks like it does actually have two brush motors that come together and turn the turn the main drive shaft. So this is a shaft driven car with two differentials, front and rear. Okay, so that's actually pretty decent. Okay, this here is another exploded diagram showing how the suspension comes together. It looks like it actually has 4 shocks on the back and 2 shocks on the front. That's interesting in and of itself. And some big chunky tires. All right, enough about the manual. Let's actually get the car out. Oh, that's cute. A little hole, I can pull it. Okay, so this got the radio, and it looks like I have it upside down. Let's just go ahead and pull this out. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's see what else is in the package. Okay, so this is just packing material. All right, so got the package. And what do we have here? So this is a chunky boy. All right, so this case got a little bit of weight to it. All right. I have a feeling a lot of this weight is probably the tires. Just looking at it, initial impressions. Okay, I'm feeling the servo. And let's see. So it looks like servo is connected under here, underneath these metal skid plates. All right, 6 shocks. It feels a little bit bouncy. So I'm, based upon the feel of this, I'm guessing that these are not oil-filled shocks. They're just sprung shocks. All right, and while I got this, I'll just go ahead. And it looks like it comes with a charger. Looks like it comes with a couple of extra, these look like steering links. So axle carriers probably. Let's take a look. Yeah, it comes with 2 extra axle carriers or steering links for the front. Okay, so that's kind of nice to have some spares out of the box. Although having spares out of the box implies that that may be a high failure point, so that's going to be something for me to check out. Comes with a little screwdriver, so that'd be useful for doing the repairs. Tire wrench, and the charger that's inside of here. All right, so what else is inside of here? And we've got, oh, that's cool. So radio, again, this is the feel of the radio. This feels like the type of radio that you would get on a $100-ish RC. Okay, it's nothing really, nothing special, nothing to write home about, but oh, So it does take 3 batteries as opposed to the normal 4. That implies that the electronics inside here might be a little bit more advanced. Looking at it, it kind of shares the look of some of the FlySky surface radios. There's no telling what's actually inside of here though. This is cool, got a nice big power button on it. Okay, and you can reverse this direction of the servos. That's good. Low speed and high speed mode. Steering dual rate and steering trim. So, okay, so this looks like you have some pretty good functioning. Okay, do not move the trigger before binding is fulfilled. Okay, so it looks like it may bind itself when you first turn it on. So, all right, that's something to look out for. All right, so now let's go ahead and dive into the vehicle itself. So let's go ahead and take off the cover and see what this guy looks like. Okay, so the body shell, this is cute. It does look hobby grade. Yeah, it looks like it could take a little bit of a beating. That's good. All right. And let's see, this is interesting. So it's got LED lights. So you actually have LED headlights on the front. That's kind of cool. Be interesting to see how much actual light you get from them. Got a little tag here. This is battery assembly. Okay, so this is telling us how to put the battery inside the container. So looks like they want to make sure that you tuck all the cords away in a nice neat position and don't have things hanging out. All right, that's important. Okay, so it looks like battery box is Velcro. So let's open her up. Okay, so it looks like there's just a Velcro strap that goes across the battery box. Oh, and then we have a 1600 milliamp hour lithium ion battery. Okay, it looks like this is lithium ion iron. Okay, kind of a cute faux carbon fiber wrap across the battery. Give it an interesting look. Dean's connectors. Okay, with the standard 2-cell balance port, and this actually doubles as a charging port as well. Okay, and inside here, so there's just a little Dean's connector that plugs into, and we have a proper power switch as well, on off. Okay, so again, looking at it, I see 2 heat sinks here. So those 2 motors that were in the manual are buried underneath here. Looks like all the construction is Phillips screws. So, and this is, I'm feeling a pretty good amount of heft here. And I mentioned that before. I have my scale over there, so let me go ahead and put this back together and put this on the scale and see how much this guy weighs. All right, but before I do that, I just want to do a quick test of the batteries just to see if I can get it put together like this is. So let's make sure it's off. Okay, everything's off. I'm gonna plug in the Dean's connector. Now, I'll be honest, Dean's are not my favorite connectors. I used to use a lot of Dean's, and actually I built my cat packs with Dean's connectors. They do the job, don't get me wrong. But when it comes to ease of use, I've kind of started to migrate towards XT60s and Castle connectors. So for my larger vehicles, I use 6.5mm Castle connectors if they're pulling a lot of current, and if for smaller things like most of my airplanes, I have XT60s. So if I keep this car, I'm probably going to convert this to XT60s just to have commonality. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with the Deans. All right, so this is basically saying just bunch this up underneath here. But this is an interesting issue. The wires at the end don't really want to bend that much to fit into the battery box. So that's something to just look out for. You might have to use a little bit of pressure to get this guy to sit flat. Okay. All right. So this is actually, this is more challenging than it should be. All right. There we go. So that's down low. And then I stuff the battery here, like that. And now I put this on. It looks like it clicks in on the two sides. So let's go ahead and click it in place. Okay, it fits in place nice and snug, but does not click in place. Okay, let's double check that. Okay, so I'm just going to bend these out slightly to see if that causes it to give me a nice lock. Oh, probably helps if I do it the right way. There we go. All right. So note to self, this little drawing here tells you the direction that it's supposed to go in order for it to click in place. And then you go through with the Velcro. In order to really secure it. All right, so this honestly will take a little bit of practice in order to be familiar with this. So if you're setting this up with your kid, make sure to go through this process a couple times with them to make sure that it's nice and secure. But it looks like once it's in place, it is in place. So I was a little bit worried about that, honestly, but it does look like it's a fairly secure solution. So let me put the shell back on, take a weight measurement, and then I almost forgot about this right here. So it also comes with a nice little wheelie bar. Okay, so I got a wheelie bar and and 3 screws. Okay, so one of them is already right here. Let's go ahead and get these two. So I'll go ahead and put this guy on, and then I'll measure the weight. 4 screws. All right. Looks like 2 long and 2 short. Okay, so let's figure out how this thing comes together. Okay, so I've got the rear of the car. Okay, I've got this. Oh, I see. So you get an option. You can run it with the wheelie bar or without. So the bumper is secured by 4 screws, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then 3, 4 here. So this is a nice injection molded piece. It looks like it had a couple random plastic pieces from the injection mold that weren't cleaned off on it. But you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and swap this out right now. I kind of like running with wheelie bars. Wheelie bars have the advantage of just A, being wheelie bar, and B, being a little bit of a more robust bumper too. Doesn't hurt anything. So, and this is kind of nice that they give you extra screws. So it looks like this wheelie bar is actually it may be sold as an extra kit. So the fact that it comes with a couple extra screws is not a bad thing. So I will just take that and put it back into the same packaging that the old one came out of. So let me put these in so I don't lose them. So it looks like you just do 4 screws. And it just comes out. There it is. All right, so here's the old bumper. So just put it back in old packaging. And now the new one, which looks very similar, honestly, but oh, that's interesting. It's articulated. And what I mean by that, I'll show you in a second. So I slide this into place here. So that slides in from the bottom. And then on the top, you've actually got a little hinge joint here. Okay, so it looks like that might actually help it to take impacts. I'm not sure. Okay, so I'm going to, the long screws, if I remember correctly, go on the top. And then the short bevel screws go in the bottom. Okay, and you know that these bevel ones are here because they go into the metal piece here. All right. Okay. So, feeling these guys, you've got quite a bit of bounce in the suspension. That's an interesting point. All right, so let's go ahead and put this back on. All right, so let's go ahead and see how much this guy weighs. So I've got it fully loaded up with the battery in place. And, oh, that's funny. The vehicle is, the ground clearance is high enough where it's not sitting properly. Okay, so I'm gonna have to use this as a spacer. All right, so I have to improvise a little bit to zero this out. All right. So now, let's get the weight of this guy. All right, so this is 45 ounces, which is 2 pounds, 13 ounces, or basically 1.3 kilograms. So that's not a light vehicle, but it's not that bad for a vehicle of this class. Now this does say it's a 10th scale, but I just want to be clear that you need to be careful about definitions because, for example, Traxxas calls their Rustler a 10th scale. This is nowhere near the size of a Rustler. Actually, let me go grab a Rustler just so you can see for comparison's sake. Okay guys, so I mentioned the Traxxas 10th scales, just for comparison's sake. So this is advertised as a 10th scale. And honestly, I think it is close to the classic definition of a 10th scale, but this is what Traxxas calls a 10th scale. So if you look at it, it's similar in size, but it's quite a bit different. But again, that's not necessarily a bad thing for here, because look, the wheelbase is similar in size here, but Traxxas, what they call a 10th scale, is really closer to a traditional A scale. The Traxxas Rustler is nearly the same size as the Traxxas Slash, which is the same size as a scale stadium truck, even though they call it a 10th scale. So this guy here, being called a 10th scale, doesn't hurt my head too much, but I'll just show you some. I'll show you some comparisons to some other cars just to put it in line. Like for example, this right here is an actual 10th scale on-road car, and you see they're kind of similar in size. The wheelbase is actually pretty close. But this is still a little bit bigger. So really, this guy kind of, I think, falls somewhere in between what you would call a classic 10th scale, which is over here, and this guy right here, which is approximately a 1/16 scale. So the body, I mean, obviously the vehicle itself is larger than this right here, but the body of the 16th scale is bigger than that right here. So I don't know. I mean, is this a 10th scale? I'm not really sure. I think in size, this is, I don't know. I mean, maybe I might call this a 12th scale. So it seems a little small for a 10th scale to me, but that said, it's actually a pretty good size. And looking at the size of the tires, I mean, this definitely does compare comparably for a, I mean, from a monster truck standpoint. I mean, if you're looking at the size of tires, which isn't really fair, but just comparing this guy, to a Rustler, which again is not a 10th scale. This is larger than the 10th scale. You know, bigger tires than a Rustler, but this is really more of a monster truck format. Rustler's more of a stadium truck. But anyway, it's a good size. All right, so let's make some observations about the build quality. So, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and take the body shell back off just so I can talk a little bit more about the mechanisms. I have to say, I do like the appearance of the rig. This is a good body shell. It's got high quality graphics on it. A lot of body shells in this price range are just, you know, they're pretty plain. I mean, this actually looks pretty good. And like I said earlier, the body shell itself is a decent material. It's got a finish that actually looks hobby grade, so that's kind of nice. This body itself does not scream hobby grade to me. That said, the plastic seems to be fairly tough, but just kind of looking at it, we've got a lot of lightweight plastics. It's very bendy. Looking at these arms, for example, these arms are very, very flexible. Looking down the side of there, the suspension, or I should say the suspension links, you know, again, these arms, they're pretty, they're kind of thin, honestly. So you see a lot of flexing there. So it's going to be interesting to see how well that holds up under abuse. The dog bones that are down inside of here to transmit power, they seem pretty sturdy. That seems pretty decent. So this is kind of interesting how the rear shocks brace the arm here to basically help stabilize that a bit. With the only front shocks up front, I'm curious if this is less stable. Honest assessment, I will say that this really feels more toy grade than hobby grade. But that said, it does have a manual that has a lot of replacement parts. So we're gonna have to see how available that they really are. But all in all, for the $100-ish price point, would I say buy it? I'm not sure yet. I'm gonna have to take it out. I'm gonna have to run it and see how it holds up under real world abuse. So honestly, I'm a little on the fence on this one. I see a lot of positives about it. I mean, again, the chassis itself, the primary chassis feels pretty rigid. That's an important thing for the vehicle to be able to stand up to a little bit of abuse, and the gearing to hold up and such. So turning the differential units, they spin pretty freely, but that itself says that there's probably not a whole lot of grease inside the diffs. Okay, so it's going to probably diff out fairly easily. Altogether, I will say that I mean, I'll call this a toy plus grade. It's got some features of it, like it's got some serviceability that I will say falls into the hobby grade category. You know, you do have a manual, you have replacement parts, but that said, these aren't oil filled shocks. I don't know if you had the option of being able to add oil to them, but I suspect not. I see some good things about this, but I also see where they cut some corners. Honestly, that the flex that I'm seeing might actually again be a good thing for durability, because these I mean, just think about RPM arms. RPM arms are floppy as well, but they're tough and they last. So I see a lot of things that have a lot of mobility, a lot of flexibility in them. So this is a contrast to what I'm used to, but that doesn't necessarily mean that is bad. So again, I'm going to hold off judgment. I will say that I really do like this cosmetically. I think that the anodized aluminum and the red accents all work together. It's a good looking package. I like the fact that they ship with a wheelie bar. I will say I like the overall cosmetics of the package. It's a good looking RC. That said, is it worth $100? I'm gonna have to hold off and reserve judgment on that. All right guys, so that's enough for the unboxing. So now the next step is go ahead and put this guy on the road and see how it actually does. We're going to see, is this worth your $100? Overall first impressions, I like the heft to the vehicle. The chassis does feel like it's pretty solid. This is fiber reinforced polymer, so I actually do feel a good amount of heft to this, and that's probably just the weight of the motors and the innards that are in here. I'm a little bit concerned about the fact that, you know, everything is sealed away inside this big chassis, but that could be a good thing, because right here, as you can see, you've got these metal skid plates that are protecting the servo. That's a good thing. The battery hold down configuration, that's pretty unique. It's not bad, but it's definitely a little unique. So I just think the packaging altogether leans more on the side of toy grade versus hobby grade. But ultimately, for a car in this price class, you're really looking for something that is quick and easy to get up and run, that you can have a good time with. Ultimately, is it going to be a good time? We're going to have to see until I actually get it out and throw it around and see if it's really worth the money. I mean, as of right now, I'm optimistic. I think that this could be a lot of fun, but we're just going to have to see how it holds up. Hey guys, how's it going? Our House 21, and it's time for the first run of my new 10-speed RC. So this is a chase height vehicle. Okay, not sure what that name is supposed to mean, but you know what, we're going to see if it runs. So this is a quote-unquote 10th scale RTR. So I would put the construction of this as a firm toy plus. I think it's above toy grade, but a little bit below what I would call hobby grade. But for about $100, this may be the type of thing that you're looking for if you're just looking for a car to just get into RC, or if you're looking for something for a kid, the favorite kid in your life, and you just want to see if they are interested in the hobby, that you just don't want to invest $200, $300, $400 on something to see whether or not they like it. All right, so let's go ahead and power this guy up. Very important, it says make sure that you power it on first, and I forgot to turn it on before turning on the body. So let's go ahead and flip the power switch. All right, it's all set, good to go. Let's see what this thing can do. All right. That's not too bad for a little guy like this. All right, so this guy is a legitimate surprise. It's very smooth. It's got a lot of power. This is a really pleasant surprise. It's got plenty of power to get over jumps. The big wheels actually make it do a really good job getting it over tall grass. This, oh my goodness. Wow, this thing has no business being this good over this terrain. I mean, even in this tall grass, which for a little guy like this, you would think would just take it to a grinding halt, it's doing remarkably well. So I'm not babying this thing at all. And the battery seems to be doing pretty decent. Although I think I'm pretty much at the end of this battery life now. All right, so conclusions. I am pleasantly surprised by this car. It's got a lot of power, or I should say it's got enough power to get itself into some interesting environments. I'm throwing it around, haven't broken anything yet, and that in itself is an accomplishment. And as you guys know, I have some pretty powerful cars. And this does not even live in the same universe as my Arrma Typhon success. But if I just want to throw something in the car real quick and just toss it around, or just have something that I can just hand over to a youngin without too much worry about whether it's going to get destroyed. This is a pretty good rig to have in my arsenal. And I did even check out low speed mode. So this is all in high speed mode. Let's go ahead and do low speed. All right, so this is low speed mode. Honestly, this was more along the lines of what I was expecting out of the box. You know, it's not terrible, but for a kid who hasn't driven a car before and who just wants to get the experience, this is more than enough. So having the flexibility to be able to give it to your kid or give it to the neighbor's kid or something like that and let them tool around like this, and then flip the switch, and then be back up to this. And I say up to this. This is with a pretty warm battery. I'm pretty sure that this is about to go in the low voltage cutoff. But I've been out here for a good long time and it's still got juice. Like I said, I'm actually pretty impressed. This guy is going to have a position of honor in my fleet though. This is a really cool bashing car. Good job. And low voltage cutoff. So what can I say? This little guy performed admirably. I mean, it's got a couple little wrinkles, but overall, this guy did really well, much better than I expected. Overall, it did much better than I expected it to. This is the real deal. Again, I wasn't expecting it. Pretty cool stuff. So overall, is this worth your money? Is this worth $100? I'm gonna have to say, yeah, I think it is. I was skeptical at first because, like I said, some of the build quality did seem more toy grade, but it's got a good level of performance and a good level of durability. The flexibility that was in the suspension arms, which I was a little bit worried about, seems to have worked pretty well. It did really well on the jumps. It wasn't too bouncy running. It seemed pretty planted. Had great throttle response. You know, I'm gonna give this an 8 out of 10. This was a fun little rig. All right, guys, that's enough for this one. Our House 21 sign out. Remember the mantra: fly, fix, fly, break it, fix it, and do it all over again. And stay tuned for more content on this truck and trucks like it. All right, guys, our House 21 sign out. Peace.